Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Commercial Property Investor Podcast, where it's my job to introduce you to people from the world of commercial property. We're talking with investors and thought leaders about their experiences of the commercial property world and sharing our own lessons from the last 20 years to give you practical know-how so that you can follow in their footsteps. If you've ever thought commercial could be your next step, but it just seems too confusing and opaque, then you've come to the right place. There are so many exciting opportunities in this dynamic sector, and I'm looking forward to pulling back the curtain and sharing them with you.
These are all the things that the new management team are driving forward. The business has to evolve. We could hang on very happily. Why would you do that? For the business to do really well, we have to let the guys come in with the energy. We're going to hold on to their shirt tails and we're going to enjoy the ride and we're going to learn a lot.
Welcome to the Commercial Property Investor Podcast, the show dedicated to the private investor, and I'm your host, Jerry Alexander. We want to show you how to cross the divide from residential investing over to commercial property investing. Through interviews, tips and lessons learned, we share experiences of investing and give you the inspiration, knowledge and confidence to enjoy this great cash flowing strategy. So let's get started.
Welcome back to the Commercial Property Investor Podcast. I'm down in London today and I've got a really great guest with me, Niki Fuchs from Flexspace in town. Welcome, Niki.
Welcome. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming to our offices.
I was going to say it's almost welcome me because I'm in this great space here in the podcast studio, hoping all this kit's going to work, right?
Surrounded by, are they vintage cars or classic cars and wing mirrors?
Yeah, we'll come on to your themes later on. Because your spaces are fab, right? And you know, they're well known for the design element, and we're going to come on to that. But I think the best thing to do is let's set some context so our listeners know who you are and what the business is about. So maybe you could just tell us a little bit about the business and also what you do in the business.
Oh, okay. Well, the business is serviced offices, or you might call it Flexspace or hybrid office space or business centres, or if you're in America, executive suites.
Yeah.
We also have meeting rooms and we do a form of day offices, co-working, but just for our residents, additional staff rather than external clients. So that's who we are. We're based predominantly in London. We do have 2 sites in Cardiff. We did have our very first one, which opened in 1979 in Northampton, but we've just sold that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So because it was started by our mother, and she is in good health, but of good age.
Yes.
And she's looking to be comfortable in a retirement village. So we're getting her money so she can go live a wild life in her latter years.
Wow, 1979. That's a pretty early start.
Yeah, I'm going to claim it, the first. I'm going to put it out there. Richard Smith, I know you do it, you say it too. We were the first. So serviced offices, predominantly based in London. We own our buildings, which stands us out from the crowd. There are very few other operators. I mean, Bruntwood have been doing it for years and years and years. Obviously, Workspace, Clockwise have just come into the market, and 1 or 2 others. But it's not a model that a lot of people have entered because it's quite a high barrier to entry, which we'll come on to later. You've told me. So that's the business. My brother Giles and I started it with our co-founder, Sarah Singlehurst. She's still our sales director. Giles and I took a slight step back in July last year when we bought our last shareholders out. Mm-hmm. And we have a new management team, which is made up of Sarah, our sales director, Simon Eastlake, our MD, and Georgia Sandham, who you're going to speak to later, who is our operations and ESG director.
Fantastic. There's a lot of information in there. I'm intrigued about why in 1979 it came across your mother's mind to actually start doing this type of business.
Well, I'm sure she won't mind me saying that my father had something to do with it, although she fights against that a lot. So my father worked for an American telecoms business, and serviced offices, executive suites were already in the States.
Yeah.
They were very niche, really, over there. They aimed at lawyers. They had whole libraries of legal books, obviously. my father came back. He'd inherited a small building from his father. It had mold growing out of every corner, and they had no money. So they shut the ones with the mold, shut the offices with the mold in, opened the ones that didn't have mold, sat my mum at a big desk with 5 telephones, the big white clunky ones that you'd pay a fortune in some vintage shop now. And she had a typewriter, an electronic one, not a manual one. And the phone would ring and she'd pick it up and answer it for Joe Bloggs in room 1 and John Smith in the other one, and do their audio typing, where you wear a pair very similar to the ones you got on now, some earphones, and listen to them talk and type their letters for them. So that's how she got started. And the drive for the clients came out of the recession, redundancies, executives setting up on their own with their redundancy money. And in those days, an executive had what we would call a 5-person office now to themselves.
Yes.
And the desk went from one side of the office to the other side. They had these enormous chairs, and they had filing here and a big clock and a big picture. And my mother used to totter in and, here's your cup of coffee, sir, and here's your post, and what can I do for you? Worlds away from what it is now.
Different now, but still the same business, selling space, right?
It's selling space through people.
Yeah.
It was all about my mother and her skills, her personality, her warmth, and making an environment where these, gentlemen, because it was all gentlemen in those days, felt that they could get on and do their job because my mother was there to look after them.
It's funny, isn't it? Because even in the time I've been in the industry, it's changed a lot. But you just recognise there are some fundamentals that stay the same, right? People are after space, the service and everything around it has really become a major differentiator, obviously, in particular with your business. But technology's allowed some of that stuff to happen, as well as, obviously, humans working on the service side. But it's just that the breadth, it's not as though all of the industry's gone high end. There's just much more breadth in the industry now and offer, isn't there?
Something for everybody.
So the bit you mentioned also in your intro there was that you guys decided to buy buildings, right? Which is particularly of interest to me. There are some industry operators that have many, many, many locations. But they've managed to do that by not buying capital-intensive assets. What made you decide to do that early on?
Well, we started when Carol, my mother, started. They took leases. So back in 1979, They had a lease on an office building in Bedford, Northampton, Coventry, Leicester, and Halesowen, of all places. Nothing against the Black Country; it's beautiful, but it was a bizarre place to open a serviced office. And they took leases. And when I stepped into the business, it was tough because our landlord was not aligned with us. They would put rent increases in regardless of the market or what we could afford. And our clients could only afford what they could afford. And so over those years, we saw the weakness in the leaseholding model. As we truly believe the landlord and the tenant have to be aligned, not just for the return on investment, but for the benefit of the client and for the building. So if you lease a building for 10 years or 15 years, you can only invest in the fit out enough money that you can depreciate over that period. If you buy a building, you're fitting it out for eternity. To an extent, 20 to 25 years. When we do our fit out, we are building it for a 20 to 25 year period, and we ensure that we can renew it and enliven it and keep it relevant over that period without having to empty the building out. And on top of that, when we own our buildings versus a lease, if you have a lease, you get to year 7 on a 10-year lease, you're not going to decorate it. You're not going to renew it. And so your income goes down, your clients are less satisfied, and the business suffers. We own our buildings. Some of our buildings have already been open 10 years. You walk in and it's like they've just opened. And that's because we're invested in the asset.
Yeah.
Does that answer your
Yeah,
question?
no, you're absolutely right. It's actually for me, it's the core of the
Being
business.
a building owner,
right?
yes.
It's basically trying to get an asset at a reasonable price, usually because they're usually discounted because there's an issue going on, right?
Always about the purchase price.
Yeah. So you get in at that level and then creating the operating business. But effectively what you're really doing is increasing the value of your portfolio, which you can either then use to get the next one or...
Yeah, so you're making your money on the operating profit. You're making your money on the rental element and on the capital gain.
Yeah, and when you get to the end of the lease, there's that whole dilapidations thing, right? So that's the other part that you're a lot of people don't think about when they enter, but when you come to the other end,
and then again, the landlord and the tenant aren't aligned in that. The tenant, as an operating business, they close the business. The landlord doesn't get the dilapidations, and for us also, it means we get much better longevity out of our clients. So our cost of client is a lot less. Our fit out quality, by definition, because we can afford more, our soundproofing is better. And it gives us, there are the biggest issues. We've just had COVID. Anyone in a lease knows how difficult that was.
Yeah.
And even if you owned your building, it was really difficult. Nobody's got bottomless pockets, especially us, small landlords relative to the other landlords. But it really brings it to mind how tough it is if you don't own the asset.
Yeah. And if things change, it can have a dramatic impact. Let's just talk a little bit about the buildings, right? Because it would be unfair to not bring up the style that you do in buildings. And we were talking before we went and hit record about an event I went to a year ago, and it was over at the Roof Garden in one of your buildings next to Tower London.
Yes, Monument,
that's right. And there's a nice bar up there, a restaurant, fabulous space. And I remember talking to Simon, and I think, do you guys actually operate that yourselves in-house? Yes. So we're going to come to that in a minute, right? But just on that building, when you go in, it's quite a nautical theme.
Yes, because it's on the Thames. Yeah.
So that's throughout the building. And the room we're sitting in right now is... orientated around cars and vehicles, right? Let's say. I think there's some giraffes in this building.
There's some giraffes. There's some Lego. There's some Spike Milligan poetry. Smile, my most favourite poem. But yes.
So have you gone each building in a specific way, like say the nautical and one? Has each building got its own design? Maybe you could just tell us about some of them.
Yeah. So we have an amazing designer called Sam Koch. Which when we first started, she was a strong, independent woman. Sadly, now she's married to Simon Eastlake, RMD.
That's how that came about. Right, okay.
They met on the job. Sorry, Simon. Sorry, Sam. But Sam, so if I take this one, because this was our most recent, there was a company in the basement and they had smiley faces all over the place. So there was an element of happiness here. And so she took that theme and she gave us all a questionnaire, asked us what made us smile, what were our best childhood memories, what was our favourite animal. And then she came up with the happiness building and all the elements in here. So cars for Giles, Lego for Simon, space. It's all around Giles and Simon, let's be honest. My dog.
Where's your room?
Well, I don't have a room. There's a pink room next door, the infinity room. Maybe that's mine. And on each of the floors, they're beautiful, vibrant colours, and there's a dog, or not a real dog, a dog on each floor. Yeah. And so this building was made up of what made everybody in the company happy. Monument was about the environment. It was close to the Thames, so that made sense to have the nautical theme. New Broad Street is a board game that's very famous, which I can't say live. Might have a dog and a hat in it. And because it's in the city, that made sense. Yeah. Or not. We did think about putting rolling dice in the breakout areas, and everyone's like, no, that's just too far. And Waterloo, that was tamed down. So our Waterloo building is Alice Through the Looking Glass.
Okay. I've never seen that online. Yes. Yes, I do remember seeing that. And
at one point, we wanted to put a circular slide in there, but we were told that was just... I have to say, when Giles first came, up with Sam about that. I did think that is a step way too far. It's going to be a disaster. Please don't do it. But at that point, I didn't have as strong a voice as I do now. And I didn't dare say anything. But it's been a huge success. We've got the bottom half of Alice in reception and the top half on the roof terrace. So it is a lot about what Sam feels when she goes into the building. It's also about its locality, who's been there before. So it's a lot of different things.
That's fab. And do you have any direct information, data from customers, surveying customers, about their feelings about that?
Yes, every lost client. No, I'm only joking. We don't, because it is what it is. And we think, well, not that we think, it's been successful.
Yeah.
And so why change something that works? The people that don't like it walk through the door and go, it's not for me. But they are few and far between, especially because once you go above the breakout space, no, the offices are very standardized. So no, we're not going to change it. And a lot of our competitors are beautifully designed, but they all look very similar.
They're not unique.
They're not unique, exactly. And everybody in Oxford is unique, and so our buildings just reflect everybody in the business.
They certainly are. Right, okay, so I'm going to go back to my
Put your glasses on, you're making me nervous.
Really? Yeah, now I can see it. What's wrong with that? Right, now then, miss. Right, okay, so back to Monument. Basically, when we were there, we were talking about the roof garden and the restaurant, and you guys operate that yourselves. And also, from memory, you also have in-house cleaning teams.
We have within no, that's right. Within the Ossett structure, so we have our serviced office arm, and we have the Burr Island hotel arm, and we have office space cleaning as well.
Right.
Which is not just dedicated to Ossett, it does lots of other companies.
I want to dig into this bit because it's an ongoing conversation all the time in our business about how much we spend on cleaners, how much time we spend managing, right, trying to get the best service. And also, I mentioned earlier on, we've got a food and bev on one of our sites, which we operate. It's not through all our sites, just one site. But it's one of those things you think, well, am I better with than without? And you're one of the few that I've come across that actually said, you know what, we're going to do all this in-house. And can you maybe just talk me through that? Have you
Stupidity?
I'm sure you've had some experiences that made you do it, or has it always been that way?
What's the word when you think you can do everything? I think our strategy as a business is that our buildings should provide a solution for all of our clients' needs.
Yep.
And that if you want to maximize your income, sweat your building, whatever it is you property professionals say, then you want to have as much control over those operational businesses. So that's the first principle. So if it was a restaurant or a hotel, we would probably learn through somebody else first.
Mm-hmm.
So our first cafe bar was at Waterloo, and we outsourced it. After 18 months, we're like, do you know what? We can do this better. We can definitely do. Ignorance is bliss. But we learned the important things, and the service got better, and it was more specific to our clients' needs, and
less friction.
Absolutely. And we didn't enter into these services at that point to make a profit. It was about enhancing the service to the clients. And we put an extra £1 on every workstation, or every £5 or whatever it is at the centres that we're talking about, to cover the costs.
Yeah.
And so that's how it's come about. We want to learn as many skills as we can. So when we open our 200,000 square foot building, we can deliver everything from service bedrooms to hotel to nursery, doctor, dentist, whatever it may be that we want to put in there, and maximize the income from the different operating businesses. But we will hire in professionals to do it.
The 200,000 square foot building.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Is that one of those ones where you shut the door and lock the key in?
Yeah. Once you're in, you can't come out.
You can't come out yet. You don't need to come out.
You don't need to come out, no. If you want sunlight, go to the roof. Yeah, so we do have a belief that, you go to Vancouver, they have everything. They walk underground because it's so cold in winter. And especially with the change in how everybody's working.
Yeah.
When they're in work, they're about being with people, having fun, living life, maximizing their time. They don't want to be taking half a day's holiday to go to the doctors or the dentists. And with health and beauty being such a massive part of everybody's life, whether it's, whatever it is they need, they want it instantly.
Yep.
And they want to know it's good quality.
Very good. I think that aspiration there to run a building with everything creates so much stickiness for customers to stay and to want to be there.
Sorry to interrupt you, but that our desire to do what we call a CMOB, is a service enhanced building, is that the clients evolve through the building. So they may start with a virtual office,
Yep.
a mailing address, telephone answering, or just dropping in for meetings. And then they progress into a small office and they grow. And then when they get to 50, where it's not always cost effective to be in a serviced office beyond that, depending on your business model
Sure.
and its growth plans, we do, instead of an opt-out service, you do an opt-in. So you have all of the services and facilities and you can take them in as your business needs them. So it's a managed space.
Do you find, just going down a quick tangent for a second, that those larger businesses that maybe might have left before are actually hanging around a bit longer because they're making use of a 50-person room or space for 60, 70, 80 because they're now starting to do more flex? So you're actually finding that maybe some of those are hanging around a bit longer. Would that be fair?
Interestingly, we've got a couple of big clients here. We have lost some of our bigger clients because we only allow 16%, one client to have 16% of our space. That's how we manage the impact to our business. Yep. So we tend to lose our big clients and we have lost a few. But I think if we were in a bigger building, yes, definitely. Yeah. Because they wouldn't be growing. They would stay in the same or flex down. But
yeah, that's interesting. So you've lost those clients often through choice, or your choice.
Of our choice. It's really, actually
painful.
It's really painful. You're like, can we squeeze another desk in? But you have to just stick by your guns and go, we're going to take the drop in occupancy. And actually, every time you do that, you break the big space up, you de-risk it, your income goes up, not down. But it's always tough.
How much flexibility do you build in? I appreciate every building's got a different structure, right? But how much flexibility do you build in? Because we're talking earlier on about the infrastructure not having to be a capex that you're putting in somebody else's building. You own the building. Mm-hmm. You're spending finance on partitions and various services. But actually, how flexible are your units? How much can you take? How often can you just take a wall down because somebody wants a bit more space?
Continuously.
All the time.
We hate our staff. That's not true. We love you.
Always asking those questions. Can we just make this
well, the benefit of our structure, having general managers who are the operational and the salesperson within each of our centres, they are MDs of their own business, is that they don't take a wall down unless they really, really need to. We try and charge the client. But if we've taken a wall down for another client, we'll take the money to put it back up. But we're very transparent about it. But 99% of our walls can come down. We don't, as a rule, because of building control and fire, take down corridor walls. Yeah. So that's really the limitation. Yeah. You do it occasionally.
We try and put all our services on those corridor walls or the outside ones.
On the outside.
So then we can,
Or up there so they can drop down.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, right. I'm going to go back a bit just to touch on finance. Okay.
Giles! Charles, where are you?
You're on your own. You'll be fine. Over the years, your funding lines, I think, have evolved and changed, right? So without going into all the different areas, maybe a simpler way of putting the question to you. Niki, what lessons have you guys learned through the various ways you've done your funding over the years? That, somebody who's maybe listening to this, starting out, they're maybe going to have to go with whatever they need to go with to get started, but over, because you've been in this industry for a while and you've used some different financial models, what's been some of the things really you would share are lessons?
I think the first lesson is whoever you choose as your business partner must be somebody you are morally and ethically aligned with. If that was the one thing you took away from this podcast, that would be the one, because you're the person running the business. They've taken you on because of your expertise and your knowledge. But all of us, having now sat the other side with a hotel where you're the investor, your investor's going to want to know that their income is secure and that you're doing the job. And if you don't start off with that level of respect and understanding and morally, your moral compass aligned, that relationship will falter very quickly. And they generally will hold you in the palm of their hand. So that would be lesson one.
That's good.
Lesson two is that, and we've had wonderful investors and we've been really lucky with every single relationship. We haven't progressed with our growth as we would like to with all of them. And they're all different reasons. And we never set out, and they never set out for us to end up where we ended up. But you have to ensure they have the money to do what they promise what they've promised you, as much as you can. Obviously, nothing is iron tight, clad iron. What's the saying?
Both. Ironclad.
Ironclad. Thank you, Mrs. Malaprop's out to play. So I think that would be the other one. Do your due diligence. Yeah. Make sure you understand what they've got to invest, what their investment parameters are, who has control over those parameters. Are they going to change? What are their growth strategies? Have they bought you or bought into you or loaned to you to help them with their next step? Because once they've made their next step, your horizon changes with whoever it is that they're working with or they've sold to or they've added to their shareholder list. Is that two?
That's two. We got a third one?
Have we got a third one? Skin in the game. Mm-hmm. Because you work really hard. We all work really hard. And this is another reason why we wanted to own our buildings. I ran around with Giles for many, many, many years running a management company. And we had 13 sites from Scotland to Wales to Brighton. I was on the road 5.5 days a week. I was working, 18, 19 hours a day for a management fee. Now, I loved it and it was great and I learnt a lot and I wouldn't be here today if I hadn't done it. But you have to get the reward for what you do. And so I would say do something smaller, have control over your future rather than go for growth. But that's just us. Yeah. OSIT has never been about growth at any cost. It has been about security, stability, and growth, and about our people.
I'd love to delve into all of those, but I'm not going to. I'm going to spare you that. But there was a previous brand.
Yes.
And that's maybe what you were just alluding to there.
City Executive Centres,
that's right. And they were 19 locations, did you say? 13. 13, sorry. One in Edinburgh.
One in Edinburgh.
Still there, I think.
It is, yes. It's run by our landlord.
Do you know what I really always laugh about every time I drive past that building is there's a sign in the window, right, saying, office space to let, right? Yeah. How long has that been up? So just for those listening, right?
James, take it down.
This is in the new town in Edinburgh. It's, I don't know, AAA listed, whatever. And people say to me, oh, I can't put any signs up. Right? And you drive past this building. It's just, because of course, Rydens, DM Hall, Jones Lang, LaSalle, they all put a sign up.
Yes.
So why can't we? As long as it's not damaging the building and it's wedged in the right way.
Yes.
But yeah, that sign's been up there for a very long time. It makes me laugh every time I go past. You know what's there, right? Right, okay. So I think it's maybe time we just talk about customer experience, because you guys, you've alluded to it a few times, and I think it's totally intrinsic with your staff and your culture. So maybe you could just talk through some of the things that you've taken from experience to say, right, actually, these are some of the key things that differentiate us in terms of our customer experience, or even the way the staff present themselves. Is there some things that you can maybe give us?
I think I'm going to answer a different question.
You're allowed to answer a different question.
No.
Listen, I'm going to move this over slightly. I think we're all right. I'm not going to knock you over.
Our customer experience.
Basically what I'm asking is, I think those two kind of sit together.
They do.
Customers and customer expectation and staff and how their expectations, all that stuff needs to mold together. And it's really just, it seems like you've got something pretty unique going on here.
Well, that's very kind of you to say. And we just did get listed in the best employer for the Sunday Times.
For the third time?
First time.
First time,
yes. Hopefully it'll be one of many. I think first principles is we hire on personality.
Yeah.
On the individual. Doesn't matter what age. It is harder when they're younger, depending on their life skills and their family background. If they've never worked at all, we're not big enough to provide that level of coaching. But it's all about the person.
Yeah.
And they can have no skills. We're comfortable, we can teach them the skills. But it is about their coming back to, I sound like a broken record, what are their family morals? What are their family ethics? What is it? If you cut them in half, what would you find? And that is what ties every single person within OSSET together, because they're all purposeful. They are all kind. Intrinsically, that is who they are. And so we're starting on the same baseline with everybody. So I think I would say that's the magic ingredient. The other one, who knew it, large proportion of our staff are artists.
Oh, really?
Yes, they've done art degrees of some sort. Who knew? But yeah. So I think if you have a strong starting point, don't laugh at me. If you start with a good starting point, your clients are going to get consistency.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to continuously remind a member of staff to smile or to be kind, to be generous, to be thoughtful, to make a difference. It is who they are, so they do it naturally. So then our clients experience the best experience, not just our beautiful buildings and our beautiful space, and their staff benefit from those spaces, and giving their business a great environment, but they feel the cheers factor every day. They feel like they're walking into a place, going back to my mum in 1979 with the old geezer behind his big brown desk and his big chair. Everybody walks through the door and they feel happy.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what we've got really right. But we are small. We're 55 staff. We're not TOG or anybody else. But I would hope that as we grow and the new management team grow, they've learned enough that is the essence.
Yeah. That's interesting, 55 staff, because to keep consistency with that, quality is not the right phrase, but with people with that expectation and mindset, it's quite difficult. But, the fact that you're that size makes you think, well, okay, that might be possible, but longer term.
Well, I think the way we structure our staffing, which is with a general manager, who is the MD of the business, you don't drive culture from the top. I mean, of course you drive it from the top, but it has to grow from the bottom up. And so every person that you employ has to see it, has to feel it, and then it has to be continuously shown to them by their manager. So I met this morning a new member of staff who, because I'm not day to day in the offices, I hadn't met. And she walked through the door and she introduced herself and she didn't know who the hell I was. I was like, hi, I'm Niki. Anyway, she went to the ladies' room, came down, and I said, how long have you been here? She said, this is my 3rd week. She said, I know it sounds really corny. She said, but it just feels like being at home. 2 weeks in, and we do a tour. So when you start, you have to go around and spend half a day at all the centres. So you meet your co-workers, you see what the other centres look like. You've made a friend somewhere else after your centre. And so it's not us. I can't drive the culture in Ossett. Giles can't drive the culture in Ossett. It has to be every single person taking responsibility for it. And that comes down to the essence that you employ.
That's really good. Okay, so
sorry, shut up, Niki.
Who's doing... No. Yeah, just don't spoil. Share all your secrets. Who's doing the recruitment then? The general managers?
So, yes, empowerment, going back to your question about the customer experience, empowerment is really important. And not having a fear of failure. Everybody fucks.
It's all right.
Everybody says terrible. Everybody does bad things or makes mistakes. And my brother and I lived our life where we were expected to make mistakes because if we didn't, we weren't going to learn.
Yep.
And so we want our staff to make mistakes. We want to have the conversation with them where they explain to us where they went wrong and how that won't happen again. But they are not scared of making mistakes. And that empowers them to engage. And so that helps our customer experience.
Great. Okay. Thank you. I just want to delve into the people thing because it's been fascinating as our business has grown too to see how certain personality types and skill sets fit. And then some others it's like chalk and cheese. And you're like, how did that come about? Not everybody's the same, right?
No, it's so divisive as well.
Yeah. And you just think, wow, and it's interesting you're saying we are pretty much recruiting on personality, not really on skill set, because we can teach all that, right? So that's really interesting. Right, just talking about personalities, it would be rude of us not to talk briefly about Giles.
We wouldn't fit in here with his personality.
So, in your own words, what does he do in the business?
Oh my God, everything. We would not be where we are now if it wasn't for Giles. He is, I know he's my brother, please. I was going to say a really weird word because I was going to get it wrong. He has had the vision and the drive and the skill to get us to where we've got to. When we started out, we didn't go to university. I know you've all heard this story a million times, but when you haven't, it makes a big difference. We didn't grow up in, our father was an immigrant, and we didn't grow up in an environment where you had lots of history, where he had obviously been to university, he was hugely intelligent and was very disappointed in our lack of academia. And so we knew what we'd learned on the street, so to speak, and from our parents, who were both amazing individuals. So when Giles got to the point, we set up office space in town and we had to find money. We didn't have any money, not what you need to get started in this industry. And Giles went and sat in front of people that were speaking in acronyms and in words he had no idea. And he had the bravery to sit there and go, what does that mean?
Yes. And
he would come back empowered every time. And he'd go, half of them don't know what they're talking about. They've heard it, they recite it, they don't.
When you question it, they don't actually know how it all fits together.
And so every time he went into a meeting, he learned, he didn't hit maturity till he was 45, and he's just gone from there. So Giles, you asked me about Giles. He's a phenomenal individual, and he does more work lying on his sofa than I do in a year. It's quite incredible what pours out of his brain.
That's fantastic. I've seen on LinkedIn about the island. You brought it up briefly.
Yeah.
Maybe we could just touch on that. Is that entirely a business decision, or is there more to do with fun and other aspects on that one?
How did we get involved in a hotel?
Oh, yes.
Well, so as you...
And not just a hotel. It's not like round the corner here, right? It's on an island.
It is a responsibility. Burr Island is... We became responsible for an iconic iconic building, which is part of the history of the UK.
Been on TV once or twice.
Been on TV once or twice with Giles in his, dressed up to the nines. So how did we get involved? We, a couple of years ago, 2018 was the first time we had been able to take some money off the table. And we'd set out at the beginning to pay for school fees. That was what our aim was. And we got to the point, right, we can pay for school fees. That's all good. It'd be nice to buy a house. Well, obviously we could buy a house, but we wanted a house.
Yes.
Anyway, so we got some money off the table. Is that the right phrase? I don't know. And somebody that Giles had been networking with said, I've got this great investment. And he showed Giles the hotel. And Giles was like, this was on paper.
Yeah.
Wow, can I invest? I wasn't in this meeting, obviously. What's Giles's and mine's is the same thing. And he goes, oh, no, it's fully invested. I mean, I'm sure it was a pitch. A couple of weeks later, he goes, actually,
there's an opening.
We'd never heard of Burr Island, but the minute you drive over the hill and you see it glistening in the sea, you fall in love with it. And then when you arrive on the island, the people, the staff there are just, they just melt your heart. So many have been there for so long. They are Burr Island. So that's how we got involved. And Giles is still paying the price. It's his. He works very hard at it. We're very sad to put it on the market, but we've got planning permission for it. We've provided enough accommodation now for the staff. I mean, when we took it over, it was running at 50% occupancy because it couldn't house enough staff. It's on an island. It's tidal. You can't get them on. You can't get them off. So, it's taken us a long time. The staff have been very trusting of us, and they've put they have put a lot of trust in us. And we are nearly there. The new staff accommodation, we bought another hotel in Bigbury. We've done it up. It's going to provide 25 staff accommodation for 25, their own dining room, playroom, the whole works. So we feel that we have done everything, and we don't have bottomless pockets.
Yes.
We aren't in those upper echelons, and the hotel deserves to be taken on its next journey. And we want to find somebody who is going to love it like we've loved it, love the staff like we have, and be its caretaker.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a question here about it, right? So one of the things I find challenging sometimes is shiny pennies. I'm sure most people do, right? A shiny penny, like another distraction. Okay, so the hotel doesn't sound core to what you do. So would you call it a distraction, or was it very deliberate?
No, it wasn't a distraction. Hotels. Oh, I can use the word hotelification now.
Yeah, sure you can.
Simon, I got it in.
Randomly. But.
Randomly. So, no, I mean, the service office, the Flexspace service office, we are hotels. We just don't allow our clients to sleep in them. It is all about service delivery, and it's all about your staff. It is exactly the same and it's about the physical environment. So the two businesses, our skill sets were perfect to take the hotel and to move it forward.
Yep.
But we just don't, we are not hoteliers. And so we have used every ounce of our ability, being, nous, energy to get it to where it's got to. But we can't take it to the next bit. So shiny penny, I'm sure it was a shiny penny to Giles that first day when he saw it. Absolutely no doubt. He's a sucker for a shiny penny. But he's got a huge amount of business acumen. And so it's been a great journey. We've had some lovely holidays there. We've met beautiful people. We feel that we've done a good job. We've done the job that we should do. Probably a shiny penny, but no regrets.
Great. Okay, so that leads us neatly on to one of my last questions, which really is about the future. So you mentioned there about maybe taking some money off the table, changing the structure, building in Simon and the growing the team so that you guys can maybe step back a little bit. But what's the future for the business? What is it you're trying to do next?
Well, nothing has changed. We've been working on our succession planning from 2018, really because we're old. We're old.
Royal we?
Royal we. Everybody who I'm talking about knows that I'm talking about them at this precise moment in time. We're old. And, so I sit with, so Simon obviously is taking on Giles's responsibilities and Georgia is taking on mine. And I sit and look at them every day and go, you are way out of the league I was in when I was your age. And so I needed something different. And to have spent this time with Georgia and Simon and watch them develop and pass on what little I've learned.
Sounds like you're desperate to get out of the way.
No, and I'm learning so much from them as well. And, the changes they've made since July when they became MD and Ops Director and Giles became founder and I became CEO. Our ESG policy, I've said it again, sorry about that, guys and girls. We have clients walking through the door going, what is your ESG policy? It's been downloaded so many times off our website. The menopause policy, which we put out to the market, only because we're old women. It was important to us that you men understood what we were going through. When we put it on our website, it was downloaded over 200 times.
Really?
We weren't advertising it. We put it in a newsletter and a couple of Instagram posts. We have a green team now. We have our customer service accreditation. We're going through B Corp. We're BREEAM Excellent. And these are all the things that the new management team are driving forward, which, the business has to evolve. We could hang on very happily. Why would you do that? For the business to do really well, we have to let the guys come in with the energy. We're going to hold on to their shirt tails and we're going to enjoy the ride and we're going to learn a lot.
Sounds great. I'm looking forward to that phase. So is there any next buildings? Is there anything on the horizon?
Simon is doing a lot. So we obviously are always looking for finance. If you're out there and you're interested, give us a call. Our biggest problem, and it is a challenge, going back to what you were saying about your listeners, what should they know? If you're lucky enough to have personal wealth, not a problem. But if you have to marry the investor with the property, it's challenging.
Yeah.
So it's always challenging. You have great building, but that investor is not...
It's not impossible. It's about timing as well as anything else.
It's all about timing. COVID, put us back a long way. And Simon he's got some good leads and we're hopeful and we're going to continue to grow.
Yeah. Fantastic. Right. Okay. So knowing what you know now, just looking back a little bit into the past, what things would you've got your notes there? Fantastic. Shall I read them? Go on, Niki, what would you say to yourself if you were back, a few years ago starting out on this process? And I'm wondering whether that's in office space in town or just in service offices. Maybe just in service offices. What would you say to yourself?
Well, this is a bit of a life thing, and I think I touched on it earlier, and it's also about our ethos. And I've written this down. I've put, don't panic. The worst is failure, which is learning, but it won't kill you. And I think, if every day I had gone, it's not going to kill you, it's going to really hurt for a little bit, just get on with it. You'll get over it. There is nothing that you can't get over. It doesn't matter if you feel like you can't drag your ass out of bed. It doesn't matter if somebody shouts at you. It doesn't matter if you closed a business. I've done a lot of that as well. You get over it. Just pick yourself up, start again. You're alive.
This too shall pass.
This too shall pass. Who said that?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh,
I say it that often, I'm going to claim it.
You heard it here first, everybody. This too shall pass.
But that's sometimes when either myself or the team or whether there's a real difficult patch, it's just, you know what? This too shall pass. In a month's time or a week's time or tomorrow or whatever it is, this will be in the past. So let's not worry about it.
No, you'll either have changed direction, found a solution, or just realised that it's not as big a problem as you thought it would be. What would be your piece of advice?
Oh, what would be my piece of advice? To myself, that is.
Yeah.
To myself would be, will you just get on with it a bit faster and get out of your own way? Well, because half the time it's what's going on in your head that slows you down. Because what's the difference between us and maybe somebody else who's, shall we say, a little bit further down the track? It might be connections, it might be money, but a lot of it's just that get up and go and actually clearing all the crap out. Yeah, but you were describing that a little bit with Giles, where there's probably quite a few things that maybe would have flummoxed others, and he's just carried on lying on his sofa and gone with it.
He always finds a solution. I love your honesty, and it's true. I am the world's greatest procrastinator. I know that's not what you were talking about, but eat your frogs, get on with it. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
So what do you enjoy most about being in the flex industry? Go on, just one question for your listeners.
In the flex industry, I guess diversity. So there's quite a lot of people I speak to who just want to invest in commercial property. They just want to buy a single unit or a unit with a single occupant because they're specifically after passive income. And when I first started this whole thing, I was doing houses, buying houses, doing them up, renting them out to try and create cash flow. And when I went and looked at commercial, I just thought this was an asset class that you parked money in. So you maybe make your money doing something else, I don't know, working in a bank or whatever it is, or in residential. And then when you've got some money, you'll park it in commercial, right? Because everybody thinks there's a yield. All the agents, a whole industry talks about investment grade. You're laughing, right? Investment grade property, because that's the way.
Not anymore.
That's the way they all think, right?
Yeah.
So when I actually then get involved with commercial, you start to realize, do you know what? It's actually quite creative. There's quite a lot you can do here, not just in terms of physically and structurally to the building, but also with your client types, the operations business, the finance, everything. And I love old buildings. So not all ours are old, but I love that whole creative thing and bringing stuff back. So I guess joining your two questions together, looking back, that whole thing about the commercial industry opening up to me and being this more creative space was something I hadn't realized before I got involved. So people who may be thinking about getting into commercial, it's not just about vanilla products. There's actually loads of different things you can do. So it's just exciting from that point of view. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Right, I'm getting back to my script now. Actually, do you know what? We're about there anyway. So the last thing I wanted to ask was just relating to your journey and what the business is up to, just so people can follow, find out what's going on. What are some of the online locations they can find out what the business is up to?
Well, obviously LinkedIn and Instagram.
Yep.
We have a great newsletter, which we started in lockdown.
Great.
And done by Sarah Singlehurst. It's very simple, very straightforward. We get a lot of great feedback about it. So if you want to sign up for that, or email me and I'll just have a conversation with you. I love talking to people. We'll always respond eventually.
Yes.
If you get two blue ticks, don't expect an immediate answer.
So we'll put some of that in the show notes.
Please, that's
okay.
very kind.
Yeah, it'd be great. We'll put the newsletter in there too. Okay. Did you have any more questions for me, Niki?
Yes, I did.
Go on.
Can you share 2 apps that make the biggest difference in your day-to-day business life right now?
I am going to do that in a minute with you, right? Cheeky thing. I forgot it's not even on my list here. Oh, hold on. It's the next page. Boom. Right. Okay. So thank you so much for joining me, Niki. It's been fantastic. And I've learned loads about the business. I've watched lots from the outside, but it's great being in here and just getting to know you and the business a bit more. So thank you for joining me today.
No, thank you so much. It's so lovely to see you. And to be in person is just great. You look great in a headset as well.
Thank you.
Bit of a Vogue here.
Thank you. Yes, yes.
And
glasses.
And thank you for making it so easy and relaxing because I hate these things. I'm sitting here with a really red face. I've been playing with my wires the entire time. And you've just sat here with a lovely grin on your face. So thank you.
You've done fantastic. Well, let me just check we've been recording. Hi there. I hope you're enjoying the content delivered on the CPI podcast. Even though it's free to listen to, it actually takes quite a bit of time and financial commitment to deliver each and every episode. Did you know that by leaving a positive written review, you will have a direct impact on the visibility of the podcast? And that's really important because by reaching a wider audience, it helps our team to continually improve the overall content that we deliver to you week after week. For some of you, leaving a review will be second nature, but for others, it might be your first one. Open your podcast app, pick the CPI podcast and search for previous reviews. And on iTunes in particular, click to look at all of the reviews and then you'll see an option to leave a written review. Go on, it'll only take 2 minutes and it'll really make our day. And we genuinely read every single one of them.